Hey, it's Camo with the Nashville Access Facebook show Primetime Edition, presented by Solis North Gulch Apartments, where taste matters. In our continuing series of trying to let people in on some of the mayoral candidates for the upcoming Nashville mayor's election, we've got our second interview, and this is Dr. Carol Swain.
Hi.
Doctor, nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for being here today. It's a pleasure.
It's great to be in this new, is it apartment building or
Yeah,
condos?
it's apartment building, and they keep the music business in mind, so they built this incredible songwriting and demo studio here, so we get to use it.
Wonderful.
This is your second time running for mayor of Nashville. You ran in the last election, and you did very well in the last one with a wide field of candidates. What was it, about 20% of the vote you got?
I got a 23%, and there were 13 candidates, and I got in I got in April 2nd,
Yeah.
and we didn't know the date of the election.
At that time.
And so I was persuaded to get in April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. Someone that had been calling me constantly and asking me to run, and I was saying no. April 1st, I prayed about it. I woke up the next morning, I had my blueprint for Nashville. I jumped out of bed, I started writing. And so the issue positions that you see on my website, swainformayor.com, came from that morning of April 2nd. And so I got into the race and cobbled together a team because there were so many other elections taking place.
Right.
Most of the people that I worked with were people that were inexperienced. We just had passion and brains.
Yeah, let's talk about the brains first. Just so you know, I studied up some really big words before we came in. I'll only use them if I need to. But you're a former professor at Vanderbilt.
And Princeton.
And Princeton. Wow. And what are some of the groups that you've been a member of? The James Madison?
I'm still a member of the James Madison Society at Princeton, and I've had a political appointment. I was on the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Tennessee Advisory Committee for the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, and I've had a lot of experiences, but I think the most important thing is that I started life as a high school dropout, one of 12. And I married at 16, had my first child at 17. By the time I was 21, I had 3 small children.
Wow.
And there's a 6-minute documentary about my life. But I got a high school equivalency, started at a community college and ended up with 5 college university degrees. I have 1 in business, 1 in criminal justice, 2 in political science, and 1 in law. Was not planned. It just wasn't. I started off with the first degree just wanting to get a job, thinking I would be a store manager. And then while I was in college, professors, they steered me, but then I thought I would be a public administrator. I'd work for the government. Mm-hmm. And while I was in graduate school, professors just really urged me to become a professor. And it was during the 1980s, and there was a recession, and I kept applying for jobs. And even though I'd been an honor student and I was known across the city for things I'd done, I could not get a job that I wanted. So I applied to graduate school, and once you're in graduate school in a PhD program, you're only qualified to teach.
Yeah, that's right. You can't teach, you're just qualified to.
Right.
So you bring something substantially different to the table than any of the other candidates with your incredible background. A really deep understanding of politics, as much as that can be understood.
Government, how governments go wrong, but the other part I bring is that before I started college, and so while I was in college, I worked in a garment factory, sewing uniforms. I was a nurse's aide in a nursing home. I was a sales clerk. I sold things from door to door. So before I got into academia, I had regular jobs, and so I feel like I can connect with a broad range of people.
Yeah, you're not a career politician that is out of touch with...
Or an elitist academician that all they've done is study and go to school. And one of the things I learned while I was working is that, I was working dead-end jobs. I knew how it felt to get that 25 cents an hour raise, how exciting that was and how much it was needed. And I also worked along with a lot of other poor people, and many of them were white. And I think my approach to race, if you were to read my research, I've never been caught up in it in the same way as a lot of people around me. And I've always felt that programs like affirmative action should be means tested, not based on race, but based on other criteria. And I've always had a different perspective on those issues, even though I was a Democrat, most of my career, most of my life. I became a Republican in 2009. And as you know, this is a nonpartisan election,
Right.
but I'm not hiding the fact that I'm a Republican. There's no reason to hide it.
You truly come from Dr. King's concept of judge each person by the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
And I wish we were doing that today, and it really bothers me when I see how universities have changed. And people get uncomfortable when I say this. Even white people might get uncomfortable, but I think that there is discrimination, but a lot of it is against whites now. And I have seen, young white men, I feel like, demonized in a way because of the color of their skin, and that's unacceptable. And I feel like anyone that fought for civil rights ought to be speaking up now. And all this stuff about white privilege, there's black privilege, there's Hispanic privilege, there's all kind of privilege, and a lot of it is about socioeconomic status. And I feel like there's a double standard that's not acceptable.
Let's attack the socioeconomic status and figure out how to fix that rather than who has what color in that.
It's a very sad that America has reached this point. And when I think about being mayor, again, I've studied politics, I've studied governments and cities, urban cities, why they fail, but I never had a burning desire to go into politics, and the reason I allowed myself to be persuaded is that I don't trust the current office holders that I see that go into politics because they want to be politicians. Like, I see myself as someone that would like to be a servant leader, as a stateswoman, and there's so many issues that affect native Nashvilleians, small businesses that have fallen between the cracks. And I think that there's a need for someone that's not tied to the current system to make changes that will never be made by an insider. Because if you're part of the system, you have too much to lose.
Exactly. Do you think Nashville is failing?
I think it's failing its people. And I don't know, like, the vision that the leaders had in the past that's resulted in neglect of our public safety officers. And it's not just the police they're probably down about 130 officers. For a city this size with the crime rate we have, they need probably another 100 officers. The firefighters, they're supposed to have 4 men per truck to operate the truck. They've been running 3 men per truck. They're down about 100 firefighters. And the dispatchers, I believe they told me they were 40 down. And I know this because I've been traveling around to the police stations, the precincts, going to their roll calls, talking with the officers. I stop at fire stations and I visited the dispatchers, and I think the public would just be horrified if they knew how short-staffed all of these public safety units are. With the dispatchers, I was there last week and I was told that they had 600 dropped calls. And a dropped call is when someone has been on the phone sometime for a long time and they just hang up. They don't know why those people were calling, and they don't have enough staff to get to the 911 calls in a timely fashion.
Wow. And that can result in lives lost.
I know.
Yeah.
And so public safety is my #1 priority. And I'm also with traffic and transit.
I was going to say, traffic and transit is a constantly eroding problem we have. It gets bigger and bigger every day. How do we attack that?
Well, I mean, a lot of what I will put forth will be common sense.
Mhm.
And Public Works identified 50 intersections some years ago where you could put in turning lanes, better synchronized traffic lights. Some people call them intelligent lights,
Right.
but they respond better to the flow of traffic. That would ease a lot of congestions, because we've all had those situations where we're behind a car that's turning left, and you know, so many opportunities if you had a turning lane for people turning right to go on about their business, or those lights that never change.
Yeah.
You're there for, by the time you're ready to go through the red light, it changes. And that can be done immediately, but I would also encourage the major employers to try to incentivize their shifting to changing their shifts.
Right.
So that we're not all trying to get to the same location at the same time. And you know, maybe there are many jobs that they can start at 5 a.m. Maybe a lot of people would want to do that. More work at home technology. Now there are many jobs that can be done from any location, to encourage employers to adopt that. That could take care of part of it. And then when it comes to Lyft and ride sharing, I don't know why we have not moved away from those big, huge, empty city buses towards vans and apps, and have fleets of vans where people can call the transportation to them. I think all of us would use the transportation if it were easier and it went where we need to go. Plus, we're spending about $82 million a year on transportation, various parts of it. I think to partner with some company like Lyft and have this fleet of vans, it would save us money, and that if we needed to subsidize it for people that were low wage, we could do that a lot cheaper than running those empty city buses.
Yeah, we run a lot of empty city buses, which are contributing to the traffic problem, not helping it. But do you think with Nashville continuing to grow, do you think that's enough? Do you think we need some sort of more efficient public transportation?
Well, that's my short term.
Right.
Which
Which is exactly what it seems like. Let's solve the problem now. What do we do long term?
Well, long term, I believe, it's my understanding that there were competing transit plans, but the leaders and the business people downtown, they were focused on one way.
Right.
And I think that we should look at the plans that are out there, but the solution would involve working with the regional governments, with TDOT. In fact, I have an appointment today with the TDOT commissioner, and I was told that the last time when we had the referendum that they were going to put through this massive rail system, that no one had spoken with TDOT about what they were trying to accomplish. And they have to be involved in every step of it. And some of the highways, they're federal highways, they're state highways, to bring in all the stakeholders and see, what makes sense. There are people that would like to see stacked highways like you have in some other cities. There are some people saying that 840 could be extended in a way that would make traffic flow around Nashville more efficiently. I think it may take a range of different things, but we can relieve the congestion. But I think that if we could get more people using public transportation because it was easier and it took us where we needed to go, that too would help.
I've always thought gondolas would be great for downtown, where they're above. You're not digging under, you're not going through, you're taking people above, and it would be a great tourist attraction too. People would want to ride those and see downtown. That's how they move a lot of people across the Thames in London.
Well, I mean, we have to be creative.
And I think that you're right. That's what we need to do, is think outside the box.
And for some reason, the stakeholders, they don't seem to have an incentive to think outside the box. And when it comes to affordable housing, another big issue, when I say affordable housing, conservatives immediately think Section 8 projects. I'm talking about housing for people making $50,000 a year or less. And I've spoken with developers, and the realtors have told me that there's 1,700 parcels of city-owned land, metro-owned land. Why couldn't we make some of that land available to private developers and contractors who would agree in exchange for the land to build homes that could sell for under $200,000? And I know that there's some modular homes there's a plant in Huntsville, Alabama, and it may be, one may be moving to Fayetteville, but a plant where they construct these homes, prefabs.
Right.
They're not trailers. They look like regular homes, and have them, put in locations. And these parcels of land are varying sizes. They're not. Some of them are large. Some of them are small. Some of them in flood zones where they would have to be built up. But that would be one option. We can make land available to Habitat for Humanity. Like they are interested in building, larger developments. Zoning has stood in the way of affordable housing because a lot of the people that get the land are the people that are building those multi-million, the big things. They're not interested in meeting the needs of the workforce or the native Nashvillians to the same extent.
And they say that it costs, the household income has to be $80,000. Is it 80,000 household or 80,000 per person to be able to
live comfortably in Nashville? 80,000 for a family. It could be individual or family, but to live comfortably. And some of that has to do with the fact that, like now, to get a 1-bedroom apartment, it's over $1,000 if it's in a good neighborhood, and 2-bedroom $1,400, 3-bedroom $1,800 and up. People just don't have that kind of income.
No, it's crazy, and like a lot of places, native Nashvillians are being driven out because they can't afford to live.
But also there's a neglect of small businesses and sections of the city like Donaldson and Joelton,
and which we often forget about.
Yeah, I know. And as mayor, one of the things I want to focus on is giving those other parts of Nashville some tender love and care. I'm not a big bike lane advocate because every time I see one, it's empty.
Yeah.
There are so many parts of the city where there are no sidewalks, and down Dickerson Road and various places you see people walking along the highway, and sometimes a mother with a stroller. Those are the people that their lives at risk.
And sidewalks build community.
They do. They get you out.
People are likely to walk around their neighborhoods and get to know people, and with bike lanes don't do that.
It has to be a priority, and like the bike lane, I think that new developments like this, that we can encourage them to build bike lanes and green spaces and all of that stuff. But I don't think that Metro's priorities should be there when we have so many other needs in the city.
I see them empty during the summer, and they're always empty in the winter.
Yeah, they are.
So, that's not all areas. A lot of areas sometimes that they're used constantly. But
where? Which part of town? There must be a part of town out there somewhere we haven't
I know,
seen.
I haven't seen it, but I'm guessing there has
in
to
other
be.
countries there
Yeah.
are. But Nashville is not there yet, and there's been so much this corporate welfare. And here's the thing that gets me is, as a conservatives are accused of being heartless, and we don't want to give welfare. And the people that have been running this city, for many, many decades, they're just enriching their buddies, and they're giving out millions of dollars of taxpayers' dollars that benefit private individuals and not the taxpayers as a whole.
Yeah, and which goes to my next question about education, because these corporations are moving in, these developers are putting up huge buildings, getting all these tax breaks to do it, and yet our schools are failing.
They don't care because they're sending their kids to private schools. And when it comes to the schools and education, I sympathize with the teachers about their pay, but also their working conditions because of some changes that were made during the Obama administration. This whole move of restorative justice, it's much harder to suspend from school the kids that are violent and disruptive. There's some teachers that are getting beaten up either by the parents or by the students, and so it's become more dangerous to work as a teacher. But when it comes to teacher pay, the school board needs to be held accountable.
And the school board has been a mess, would be probably an understatement, for the past several years.
They've isolated themselves from accountability, and they control almost $1 billion budget. They need to be held accountable, and whether it means going back to the state legislature or Metro changing the charter, they need to be held accountable. And I think as mayor, one of the things you can do is use the bully pulpit shed light on those types of things.
Which our mayor, the incumbent, hasn't really been willing to do. He just sits back and.
He does political things, like when he got involved with Sean Joseph. That was all politics.
Mhm.
And some of the funding that the city hands out, it's almost like they're buying off various constituency groups, buying off the leaders. And that's a waste of resources. And then even with the privatization of the parking meters that they're trying to slip through, I wrote the opinion piece drawing attention to that, and I've been outspoken about it. And Councilman Cooper and the various other council members, they were silent. If we hadn't learned about that because of an article in Tennessee, they would have slipped it through. And that will raise the cost of living for every Nashvilleian.
Because the theory of that was to put in parking meters where there had never been parking.
I know.
In neighborhoods, so you wouldn't even have free street parking in front of your house.
I know, it's just, and everything that would benefit the owner of the company, but not the native Nashvilleians. And I don't know what they've turned downtown into. It's almost like a circus. Parents tell me that they don't want to take their children down there and explain to them what all those pedal bars are and tractor bars, and all the people are drinking, and there's nothing down there for families.
I just this week read a piece in Nashville Scene about Nashville being, it's time to put a bullet in the idea of Nashville being the it city, because, I love the term, the honky tonk industrial complex.
I saw that, yeah.
And you're right, it makes a lot of money, but you pretty much have to be over 21 to be spending it.
But here's the other problem, is that because of the tourism zone,
Mm-hmm.
the way this legislation went through, we're not benefiting as a city from all the revenue that comes into Nashville. And I'm not sure if there's a way that we could add some type of I don't want to say tax, but some kind of way to capture some of the tourism dollars for the operating budget.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem to be the case right now.
It wasn't set up to do that, but so we don't benefit as a whole from all the tourism. It tends to stay downtown.
It seems to be, and this has been to various degrees through the past, I can only say a couple of administrations because I moved here almost 8 years ago.
Where did you come from?
England. And,
okay. Where's
and
that
then
accent?
Canada. I was originally from Canada. So,
Okay.
So I've seen growth in different cities and how European cities handle things. Nashville seems to have had the philosophy of let's just grow, and then we'll deal with the implications of growth later. And that just seems, and I hate to use a cliche, kicking the can down the road. But let's leave it for somebody else to deal with. Let's leave transit for somebody else.
That's true. And do you know something? One of the things I've learned running for mayor is that downtown under the city, the pipes are enclosed in brick, and that they need to tear all that up and put a modern sewer system under the ground. And the flooding that we have, some people are saying it's because the sewer system was not built to handle all of these new homes and all of the stuff that they're putting up, and it's just overburdening the infrastructure that we have not kept up with.
Yeah, and one of the things, I guess it's a big issue to deal with because people forget that it's not just Nashville, it's Metro Nashville, Davidson County.
Right.
So when they talked about putting in the floodgates downtown, it was voted down because people in Donaldson and people in Bellevue are saying, well, how's that going to help me in a flood?
Right.
That's only going to help the big business downtown Nashville that really should be helping themselves.
Well, Mayor Browley has only been focused on downtown, and I think that's unfortunate. And then with Councilman Cooper, who says he's going to be to the rescue and help all the neighborhoods, where has he been? Like, he's been a part of a lot of this, and I don't believe real change will come from anyone that's part of the current system, because to change it, you got to change the heads of some of the commissions and boards, and you also need to bring efficiency to government. I would like to see Metro run like a business, and and what I find with departments, for example, permits, the contractors and developers and people that have to get permits tell me that you can wait as long as 9 months. And sometimes to fill out the paperwork, you go downtown and to do something simple and you're waiting all day long, and maybe you have to come back, and that some of the employees take 3-hour lunch breaks. Someone told me that they were there one time that happened, and they don't realize that they are there to serve us, the public. They need to have accountability and performance goals, and to realize that there are standards that they need to meet. To me, it would be totally unacceptable for any division of Metro to operate the way it operates now.
And that's not unique among governments, local, state, or otherwise.
It's whatever they can get away with.
Yeah. And that's a mentality that's been going on for years. I mean, that's nothing new.
But I think if you have a desire to change it and you want to bring back the fact that under our Constitution and the preamble is we the people,
right.
And we elected officials and they're supposed to serve our needs. And I think that we need to bring back, the original understanding of government. It needs to be done in the cities, it needs to be done in Congress, nationally. And when I look at Nashville, my vision for Nashville is that we have effective government, that serves the needs of the people, that we put the people back in it. And I think that, and with the police, public safety, you don't cut public safety. It's been neglected under the previous mayors. I think that we can do some things in Nashville that will make it a model for the rest of the country. The IT city has become something now that a lot of people wouldn't want to happen to their little towns.
I keep saying they told us we'd be an IT city, but nobody explained what it was.
They didn't know what it was. And I was told about an article that someone who has loved Nashville, has come on many vacations, that they came here recently and they was horrified. And apparently there's an article they've written about how Nashville is being destroyed, or just the character of the city.
We talk about that, and an issue that's always big with the music business is Music Row. And they've just come out with a plan to save Music Row, but is that too late? Too little, too late?
Well, I can tell you that a lot of musicians and people in the music industry feel like that there's been an effort to push the music out of Music City, and that music has been, it's not prioritized. And whatever they come up with during an election year, a lot of those ideas that are floated, like the mayor's affordable housing plan, you may never hear anything from it after the election.
Exactly, and I think same thing with this Music Row plan. It's Music Row is gone. There's nothing left to save anymore. And the music business isn't done the way it was when Music Row. So is it a bad thing that Music Row is gone, or is it a good thing?
Well, I mean, I think that Nashville is Music City, and Music Row, and there are parts of the city that's distinctive character of Nashville, and that we should preserve as much of that as possible. And so I don't think it's totally too late, but if we don't turn things around now, I don't see it getting turned around. And the development that the mayor's talking about on the East River, of course something needs to be done over there, but we don't want to make that look like some of this other stuff that they have put up.
Right.
And whatever they do benefits a small group of people, and you see the same vendors or contractors or developers getting the projects. I think that Nashville needs a fair and transparent bidding process, and I think that when it comes to businesses and opportunities, that it needs to be open, fair, transparent, and there needs to be accountability standards for companies. If they get contracts from the government or if they get grants, follow up and see what they did with that money.
Speaking of money, Nashville has a lot of things we've talked about: fire, emergency services, police, teachers, transit. How do we achieve those goals without raising taxes and throwing more money at the problem?
Well, I have to tell you that until the next mayor gets in, they will not know the full extent of the problem or how much money is being wasted or where it is. And I think that the personnel cost, the government keeps growing. And as mayor, I would not go in thinking that I would want to lay people off, but when people retire or when they resign, I think you have to look at the departments. There's some departments that may need more people. Maybe permits needs more people because they're processing so many applications. I think that there has to be a hard look at every department of Metro, and I know that there's tremendous waste. Identifying that waste, and I would like to incentivize it because I think who knows better about the waste than the employees. I've had employees come to me last year when they saw those signs and they thought I was going to win, telling me about no-show employees, telling me about kickbacks, and there was a contractor that came and said that he had gotten a contract from Metro. I think it was $500,000, and then the next day he got a phone call saying take $40,000 cash to an individual, which this man walked away from the contract. But I mean, we have corruption just like Chicago, and I know it's not a winning issue to say I'm against corruption, but I'm against corruption. I don't believe that that makes government more efficient, and I think that there are too many city council members that are willing to go to the highest bidder, and I've heard things about them. We need to clean up the city.
I like that. Do you think, though, it would be a good idea to have an independent auditor come in and look at
Absolutely.
Nashville's books?
We're gonna scare everyone now.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
fine.
I think there should be forensic audits of various departments. And but what I was gonna say is that I think we should incentivize employees where they can give suggestions on how to save money, where the waste is. They know where the waste is. Have the employees identify waste. And also we need maybe a whistleblower line because some of the employees are quite upset. And I've heard about contractors that are allowed to sign off on their own invoices, companies that have bid lower, but then they use change orders, and by the time the contract ends, they've already doubled the cost of whatever it was they were supposed to bill. And individuals within Metro that can sign off on like people in secretarial positions that have the authority to sign off on large amounts of disbursements. Like 800,000. That they can do it under their own signature. That should not be.
Yeah, they're not elected.
No, but I mean, it's just a lot of opportunity for grab. And the audit department of the city, they don't really do audits. They just look to see if the numbers match whatever the budget is.
Right.
They're not looking to see what those invoices were for.
And we still have problems, and Nashville isn't unique in this, where somebody is given a budget, and if they don't spend the money on that budget, then they say, well, we won't get that money next year.
So they waste it.
So they waste it.
Yeah, they do, and it was something I think I was told that with the school board that whenever their budget increases, that under state law it can never go down, and so even if their needs change, that it keeps going up. They're not really held accountable, and it would be great if they were actually paying teachers and cafeteria workers and bus drivers what those people needed. But it doesn't seem to be going that way. You have some top administrators making huge salaries. Tremendous waste.
Do you think that the private sector can play a much bigger role in education?
I think the private sector wants to play a much bigger role in a number of things, and there have been some companies that have already kind of adopted public schools, but yes, I think that they can, and I'd like to see more vocational education in Nashville.
Which is another problem. People are still spending a lot of money on degrees that people graduate with school debt.
Well, some of those degrees are totally worthless.
Yeah, like a philosophy degree. What do you do?
Well, it's not just that. I mean, one of my Facebook friends says anything that ends with studies needs to be eliminated. but they are coming out, they may come out as social justice warriors, but they don't know how to do anything. And then the disciplinary problems in the public schools, there are some young people that would do great with a trade. They may have a special talent, but they're not going to be, for whatever reason, they're not able to do the academic work, to have options for people like that to learn a trade. And I think that when you are not able to keep up, a lot of the disciplinary problems occur because you are lost in the classroom.
Right. And programs like home economics and shop work great for teaching you basics of things. And I hear a lot of call for schools that should be teaching things like how to open a bank account, how to save money, how to invest.
Well, there's some programs, some private, maybe a nonprofit that's teaching some of those life skills, but definitely those need to be taught, especially in the public schools. And I think that we could do a lot more. But yes, I think that private companies could do more when it comes to parks. Some of them might want to build a park. Some of them might want to partner with the school. And it's my understanding that under the IRS regulations, that individuals, and I guess as well as corporations, it's possible to do things and get a tax deduction if it's towards your government. Right. And that's something that I need to run by a CPA, but as I read it, individuals can make contributions to government for a particular purpose and get a tax write-off. And if that's the case, I mean, there are lots of opportunities for people to do things that would benefit the city. But going back to your question about taxes, I don't think we need to raise property taxes. Right. I know that a lot of people would like it, some of the current council members, they just want more money to waste, more money to give away. First, we need to find out where the problem is, because Nashville doesn't have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem. Exactly. And just identify the waste before we say we need to raise property taxes. So
get that forensic accountant in there, go over the books and see where it's being wasted, and then say, okay, this is how we need to move forward.
That has to be done. And I don't think it will ever be done by any of the people that are running for office, because they're too much a part of the system.
Thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure, and I look forward, to working for the people of Nashville. I see running for mayor like I'm a job candidate, right. And it's up to the people of Nashville to hire me. And if they want to hire me, they need to fire Briley and to brush those other guys aside, because they're cut from the same bolt of cloth, and give me a chance. And my vision for Nashville is one that's inclusive. And I think that we can do some great things here.
Thank you very much. How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, my website is swainformayor.com. And, I don't come from a political dynasty. There's not a lot of wealth. So I'm raising money. And so I would encourage people to donate any amount, even $25 helps. But swainformayor.com, and they can donate online.
Excellent. Dr. Swain, thank you for being here.
Well, it's my pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Good luck in the election, and we'll be keeping an eye on it. Hopefully we'll be able to catch you when you're mayor.
I know, and I'm looking forward to being mayor, and also just getting at the problems. And I tell the police and the various people that once I'm mayor, I'm not going to disappear. I'm still going to be there.
Good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for watching the National Access Facebook show with Camo and my special guest, Dr. Carol Swain, who's running for the job of mayor in Nashville. As you can do, as she mentioned, go to her website, find out more, and if you want to donate, donate. Thanks for watching the show today. We'll be back on Thursday with some more great music and entertainment. Thanks for watching.